Hey, ladies.
Hey now.
Happy Sunday. I'm always like bouncing in the background, and then I'm like, oh shoot, the song's coming on. How's everyone been?
We're here.
Happy March!
Right.
Pisces season, gang.
Oh Lord, here they go, the Pisces.
If you don't have a Pisces in your life, get you one. Thank you. But no, seriously, how's everyone? Everyone's dealing with the crazy up and down weather that comes along with Pisces season.
Yes. It's crazy.
Today in New York, I was literally outside with no jacket on, just a hoodie, just chilling.
Oh, look at that, just a hoodie. Tell her how warm it was today, Royal. It was like 70-something degrees.
Yeah, it was 70-something. But just 2 days ago, it was a little nippy, and I had on a hoodie, but I didn't put my toboggan on, so now I'm dripping.
Oh, pause.
What do you consider nippy? Just out of curiosity.
Nippy to me.
No, it was for real nippy.
No, nippy to me is 60. Like I am such a hot weather.
I see that.
Yes.
Oh, Gemini.
I am all Gemini. I'd rather have heat and take off clothes than to layer. That's too much work. Let me sweat.
Okay, so the New York in me has to take a pause. We call hats beanies. She said a toboggan, and my brain went.
No, because beanie is smaller. Like it was a true toboggan. It was.
I'm sorry. I'm picking on you.
And she said 60 degrees. Let me say right now, if it was 60 degrees today, we'd be out here like literally in our shorts.
So can I also say the New York 60 is not the North Carolina 60?
Yeah, it's different. It's moisture here.
Yeah, it's
different. I guess. I'll take a 60. I'll take 60 any day of the week, actually. But okay. Whatever.
Till you live in the South.
I guess. Like I said, I guess,
Till you live in well, maybe if you was in your 20s, but after that, till you live in the South.
Who said I ain't in my
20s, girl? My bad. I misunderstood the assignment.
Crazy.
But yeah, so welcome to March, fam. Today, we are going to be talking about generational trauma and curses. And the reason why we use both trauma and curses is it just depends on your perspective on what trauma curses. You hear people say generational curses, and you hear people say generational trauma. So I think we all have a version of it. Whether we identify it or not is a whole nother story, right? I believe as Black women, but as Black people, we have things that are carried down, like a certain way that we act, a certain way that we address things. I mean, it has been scientifically as well as medically proven that a lot of the things that we experience in our health have been passed down to us, like high blood pressure, anxiety, those type of things that are way before probably even our parents existed. So are we going to cure all of that? Absolutely not. But I think we are one step closer when we're able to identify those things and realize that those generational curses and those generational traumas affect how we approach things, affect how we avoid things, affect our work life, our relationships, family relationships, friend relationship, whatever, it affects us. So before we start, I want to give a shout out, a shout out to Coach Tay. She was not feeling well today, and so send her positive healing vibes. We miss her very much. She definitely felt like this topic was one that was important for us to touch on. And I agree with her. So I will start off with asking, do you guys feel that you have trauma, or I'm going to just call it trauma instead of both, trauma that has been handed down to you that you did not notice was prior to whenever you discovered that? Because I know my sisters have discovered a lot about themselves. So do you feel that? I'm going to start off. Yes. Mine is a capital YES. Yes. I definitely feel that from a cultural stance. I also feel that I have passed on to my kids from my experience.
Hold on, your mic is doing something weird. We can't hear you.
Aww.
There you go. There you
Okay.
go. I don't know what just happened, but
Look at how the trauma's trying to shut me up. But yeah, so what's the last thing you heard?
Repeat everything you said.
I said my answer is yes. I do feel I have trauma that has been passed on to me culturally, has been passed on to me, and I also feel that I have experienced things in my life that I have not intentionally passed on to my kids as well. So yeah. What about you guys?
I mean, I feel as though cyclical, like it being a cycle and being able to break a cycle is one of the most important things that we can do, right? There are certain things that I see. It's so funny because I wouldn't necessarily call it a trauma as much as I would call it I mean, it's a different way I want to say it, but it's just the way this is just the way it is, right? So a trauma for me feels like it's a one-time thing. It may happen over and over again, but this has been identified as this is what it is, where in actuality, it's like, I don't feel as though it was one thing that happened that made me feel this way. It's a bunch of things that's happened over time that, I've dealt with. And yes, absolutely feel as though my son definitely, but he points it out. He ain't got no choice. He has no problem pointing it out, real quick. But I think that's the other thing. I think that's the part of breaking that chain is the point out. You know what I'm saying? And even more than that, not just the point out, but to be able to point it out. Because half the time I said the stuff that my son says to me, and I give him permission to speak to me about. I couldn't speak to my parents about it, or better yet, let me not say I couldn't speak to them. I didn't speak to them about it. Let me say that. That's a better way. I might have been able, even funny enough.
I don't know, because I think one thing that both of our cultures have in common is the whole secret. They hold it.
100%.
And that alone is because I'm like, why are you keeping secrets? I'm repeating stuff that I don't even know I'm repeating in my life. So, well, before we get deep, Royal, do you feel that?
Oh, you're fine. I'm here for it.
Do you feel that there are traumas and things like that passed down that you may be carrying, that have been handed to carry?
From a family culture perspective, I know that there are certain ways in which things are handled or addressed or not to be addressed.
Yep.
Similar to what you was just kind of speaking to, but different. So what I'm speaking to is, and pause. So before I say that, so thank you for sharing that we use trauma and curse synonymously, because they are used synonymously. And Lynn, to your point earlier, it doesn't have to be an isolated. It can be a culmination of things, and then it just manifests.
Yeah.
So, and which actually, when it does manifest, sometimes it does manifest as what Erica described. What Pearl described, in the sense of DNA changes.
Yeah.
Because what happens is our bodies, have to survive, and so
Yep.
DNA is warped or
Yep.
morphed, if you will,
Yep, on a
in
cellular
order for us
level.
to
On us.
survive. And so
Yes.
that's how it's trickled down to our children and our children's children and stuff. But going back to your
Mm.
question, yeah. So what I was speaking to is from a family culture perspective. Um, for generations, and it's also rooted into slavery too.
Absolutely.
You don't ask questions.
Yeah, you just accept it for what it is, right?
It's what I said is what I said, and you do as I tell you to do.
Woo, that
And
statement right
so
there.
I took a completely different stance because of my personality. I'm one that will ask questions and have
Yep.
no problem asking questions
Yep.
and dealing with whatever the consequence, because there were a lot of consequences. Um,
But that probably caused you a lot of problems because that caused me a lot of problems.
it-
Like, oh, here we go again, Pearl asking questions, or it's taken as pushback.
well, no, I didn't care about stuff. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I did not care. I was truly a kunta kinte. No, and
Which
I mean, like not being funny, but being
no,
funny
I
and
get
humorous.
it.
But seriously, I was one. I was going to ask the question whether you liked it or no, and whatever the consequence thereof, whether it was, I'm gonna use the term spanking, because I wouldn't. I've been beaten one time. That was a true beating, but generally I would get spankings. No, because there's a difference between a beating and a
Oh,
spanking.
I know. Oh, I
So
know.
yeah, so I can say I did get a beating one good time.
No,
But
I've just gotten spankings, but I've seen beatings now.
but yeah, so, but come hell or high water, I was that child that whatever that consequence was, I was going to deal with it. Period. So my parenting style and my means of breaking that was done with my children.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, so I just wanted to share,
Wow, it's very
yeah,
good what
just
you're
to
saying.
look at it from a different perspective, like because this topic is so broad,
Very
It's
much
so
so.
so trauma can
so.
look a whole lot of different ways.
So for me, I wanted to start off because oftentimes when you hear about this, we talk about what has been given to us.
Right.
I want to be a little daring and talk about what I've given my children. Because I definitely, my experiences definitely have um, given them things that now they're left to maneuver around. So for myself, which I started talking to you ladies before, but I'll start over. So I have not been secretive on our podcast that I was in an abusive marriage, and stayed way past expiration. But we're out of it around now, right? And everyone should be happy and go lucky, and everything should be great, but it's not. I have an oldest child who has what people tell her is like in her head pains that are in her mind, like what do you call that? Is it
Psychosomatic.
psychosomatic?
Psychosomatic.
Thank
Yep.
you, thank you. That they tell her it's psychosomatic, but in actuality, she is carrying the trauma from things that have happened in her childhood, not just in the abusive marriage, but a little bit before that too. And it affects how she sleeps. She can't sleep. She's always on guard when she sleeps. That's based on things that used to happen where she'd have to wake up like immediately and go protect her brothers or run into the room or whatever. She has physical pains, aches, and you see it more when she's in confrontational situations. And it happens for days at a time because, of course, the delay. Then I have a middle child. Oof, I love my middle child. He is very extra. I don't even know how to say it. He's just extra. And I love the extraness, don't get me wrong, but it's something that he battles with. Knowing how to process and not take it as a blaming, or a criticism where he feels he is less than. And then I have a youngest child who cannot remember a daggone thing of his childhood. And he talks about how he feels weird or awkward because he hears his older siblings talking about things where he's just like, I think I remember that. I'm not sure. But if I paint the picture for you, it would be the oldest is the one that endured, grew up, went through all of it, start to finish, right? Also, the one who took on the new responsibility of I'm mom, part two, so I have to protect my brother. The middle one is the one who wanted to, he's mama's boy, right? But he also felt and has, said, I feel like I got the brunt because I look just like you. Even though now everyone's like, oh, your kids look like you. He was the one that looked like me from day one. And so that's what he sees, right? Mm-hmm. And he also has the Captain Save him, not the whole part, but Captain Save him complex. Like he needs to be needed all the time, right? And sometimes create situations for him to be needed. And then my youngest is very used to always being protected, because the other two would run to save the day, right? Mm-hmm. Someone's bothering him, I'm running to save the day. And so, those are some of the traumas I feel I've passed down from me specifically, right? I say this last part, the irony is there was abuse to my grandmother that nobody told me about till about 5 years ago. So I was probably carrying something I didn't even realize I was carrying. So that is the trauma I am going to be accountable for passing on, but I'm also trying to be accountable on how to maneuver and heal from that for my children. So that's me.
Wow.
That was a lot, right?
Yeah, no, it's not so much. But you know what? I think that with everything that you just said, there's so many people that can definitely like, that's their life as well, right? For me, it was more like, we always talk about there being a cultural thing going on, right?
Yeah.
With me, the cultural thing is deep, right? Being first generation, Ghanaian is a thing, right? I see things in a completely different way than my family did. But I feel as though it's also that thing, I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie Encanto, but when they said we don't talk about Bruno, it's like there are certain things we just don't talk about, right? They could literally, the house could be on fire, and the fire, we're just going to pretend like the house is not on fire. We're going to act like nothing's going on, and we're just going to continue to push on, even though all hell is breaking loose. And that's the thing that I've inherited, where literally everything could be falling apart. But this is the thing, like what I've been doing for years is like kind of sort of what, Doc said. I'm not the child that you could say, oh, we're not going to talk about that. Why not? I'm going to challenge that, right? And of course it got me in a little bit of trouble, but it didn't matter. Like you said, it didn't matter. But here's the thing. Here's the real thing about it. It's like, for me, it's more like, I feel as though because I'm that child that knows in my family, because I'm the first generation, person, whatever. I'm not the oldest grandchild, but I am the first grandchild born here. Okay. So a lot of the stories, I know them. So when the younger ones start talking about certain things, and I'm like, that's not what happened. And the reason why not what happened, but not what happened because I was there. It's not what happened because I paid, so it's almost like I have to impart that information, and it's not something that's always a great thing to do. I don't want to let you know what your mother and your father were really like back in the day. I don't want to let you know what was really going on in the family for real. And that's why this happened, or that's why we don't do this, and that's why this is going on. But for me, I feel as though my job has always been to give the information, because the why will sometimes explain the what. The reason why we don't do this is because
But why do you believe that it's so important for them to hide that? Like, because
I feel as though my generation before us, my mother and father's generation, they cared about what people thought about them.
Small towns.
They're like who you are was not just Grace's daughter or or Janet's son. It was who you were as in the community, what you stood for, right? Okay. So if someone else would come and tell the truth about what it really was, then you would lose something. And the one thing about them is that because they didn't grow up with anything tangible. All they had was who they were, right?
Gotcha.
So now if you're walking down the street and somebody like take for instance, back in the day, you know, growing up, you know, going to Hillcrest and stuff like that, people's reputation, right?
It follow you.
It could be true. It could be as true as day, or it could be all lies. But one thing about that is that when you were a young woman and someone said you were fast, loose, and easy, all of a sudden that's who you became.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's the same thing. It's like you had to protect. So for that, you know, the generation before us, they would protect their reputation.
They would continue to make face.
Right. Safe face, reputation. You already know. You know what it is.
Hello, I'm the person who got pregnant without being married.
I was getting ready to say it, but I didn't want to put you on to this. I didn't want to throw you, you know.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm driving the bus.
Remember, I was there.
I'll get off and lay under it. But
remember, I was there.
I know.
In case you don't know, all those who don't know, since we're going to do this, all those who don't know, I was the one who bought her the pregnancy test. And I never forget when she walked out the bathroom and she was like, yeah, so I'm not. Oh, I said, oh, what? Stop playing, Erica.
So the trauma of that was my mother could not digest that. And so I was hidden like it was, in my mind, I was hidden like it was 1930. You know what I mean? And seriously, to this day, all right? To this day, it was like, I'm keeping it. And my mom's brain, like, because now how do I hide that? Because people know I'm not having a baby, meaning my mother. People know I'm not having a baby, which people did in that
yes.
too. But did that cause me trauma? Absolutely.
Of course it
absolutely. Would. I'm literally like, no secrets. I'm telling it all. You know, don't you hide me. You know.
No, it was serious. Like I know. I mean, listen. Here's the thing. I think that's the point. The point is, there's been so many things where the reputation of the family is more important than the person that's actually happening to.
Right.
So if listen, here's the thing. If nobody knows me, I'm like what I want to call an open book, because you're not going to tell my story. I tell my own story. I don't have no problem with. I will blow I don't have a problem with that, because that's the part that I'm trying. That's the part that I think that I worked on more to kind of like deprogram myself into. Like, you're not going to tell my story the way you think my story went. I'm going to tell my own story. And whether it was good, bad, or ugly, it's my story, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas my mother, who sometimes me and her will have a conversation and they'll start going someplace where it's not supposed to go. And then all of a sudden the conversation will either change or end, right? And it's not because, and the funny thing about it is that I've always said there are certain things that had you told me when I was growing up, I might not have done the same thing, because not for nothing, a lot of times when I talk to her, she almost like hears herself. Like, in other words, she's like, oh, shoot. Yeah, sis, had you told me, you might have saved me some of this, you know, thing that I went through. Mm-hmm. But that's not the way they were raised. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's not the way they were raised. Okay,
So did you pass down? So you didn't pass the secret stuff down. You're saying it got passed to you, but you stopped it, so it wouldn't be passed on to your child.
I think that's the thing. It's like it's the. I feel as though that whole even down to like one of the things that I wouldn't say generational curses, but one of the things that besides secretism, there's also emotional I don't know. I want to find the word. I can't find the right word for it.
But what did you pass down to your child? I'm hearing we want to start off with what we're accountable for.
I don't pass that down to my son. My son right now, I feel as though Timothy does. Don't get it twisted. He does have a tendency to like be very open with his feelings and stuff like that.
Okay. So what did you pass down to him though? Because we all.
I passed down. Besides, I mean, I feel as though I passed down the ability. I think that I kind of sheltered him a little bit from the real.
Okay.
That sheltery type thing, but not sheltering him in a way where you can't see this or you don't know this or whatever the case may be, but sheltered him in such a way where that's not that he didn't have to experience what I experienced. Gotcha. If that makes any sense. Like what I'm passing down to you is the fact that you don't have to do what they did to me to yours, and I won't do what they did to me to you. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
Whew.
So, Royal, do you feel like you've passed anything on to your children? Traumas or cycles?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Because, like I said, I took a totally different approach with my children so that
Mhm.
they feel and know that they can literally talk to me about anything, literally. Um, which I've shared open conversation with you about how my son and I've had open conversation about sex, um, in explicit detail. Yeah,
Same
and I mean, and
here.
yeah. But what I will say is that, as we know biologically, it takes two parents to create a child.
Right.
Fortunately and unfortunately.
So yes. So with that being said, I do not believe that I transferred anything. And you know what? You know what? Let me take that back, Father God. I'm gonna take it back. I will take it back. This is an interesting conversation because now you got me really thinking.
Thank
It is, right? This conversation,
so
I said it. It's gonna
yeah,
be, it's deep.
because okay, so my biological children, I will say, because my son is very much like me in the sense of he asks questions and a lot of questions, and he's not going to necessarily take whatever you give him as the final response,
Gotcha.
which I told him from when he was, as young folks say, knee high to a grasshopper.
Knee
Um,
high to a grasshopper.
that's, that's a
That's
little
country.
southern thing,
That's
but
country.
but but ever since he was small, I used to tell him all the time, "You need to become a lawyer, and you will be a
Mm.
phenomenal defense attorney." He will burn somebody down. Um, but what I would say, just thinking back, is that stubbornness, that firmness that got me in trouble has caused him to get in trouble because he's not using it for the
He's not
he didn't
using it for
use it for
good.
the good.
He's not using it for the good.
He
With
didn't use
great
it for
power
good.
comes great responsibility. He don't know that.
Yeah. So and this conversation made me think about that because I remember when he was like 17, I remember my mom and I were having a conversation and I told her, I said, Mommy, I said, listen, I said, girl, on God, I don't know how in the world you did it because I would have slapped the dog. Like she used to slap me a lot. But
Shout out to mama.
yeah, and mama know I ain't lying if she's watching. So it's all good. But um but at a point it becomes whoa
Mm-hmm.
for my New York family on this screen. It
Yeah.
truly
I got
becomes
you.
whoa. Like this is on a whole other level. I can't even get down with it. Um and so I found it interesting from that standpoint. So yeah, I will say that that part of me did get transferred, but where I was going with the duality of parenthood is that oftentimes the other side of the the other parent
Mm-hmm.
may have things
Mm-hmm.
within their family. Case in point, um, say that the other family miscommunication. You said this something similar to this, where the family will disown somebody because of X, Y, and Z, right? Whatever that may be, or keep secrets within families, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, oftentimes I see situations such as that, where that individual feels completely alone,
Mm-hmm.
not because they did anything,
Like a black sheep, sort of.
but they are, yeah, they're the outsider because of whatever this generational foolery is, where the grandfather might have been ostracized
Yes.
because of X, Y, and Z, and then the pause. the great grandfather was ostracized, the grandfather was ostracized, and it just trickles down to now you got this child who is in the same boat for no fault of his own.
Absolutely.
So it's weird. So yeah, I will say that I see that, and have seen that with my specific situation, which is unfortunate. And I don't. There's no. There is a resolve to it, but it takes courage in order to get the help that you need in order to make that significant change.
But sometimes the best step is the first step.
Absolutely.
Saying this is an issue, this is a whatever. Unfortunately, and I feel we've all been there, whether it's 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, 10 years, have been the nothing's wrong with me, that's that person. Nothing wrong with me, that's that person. And then there's no healing in that process.
Correct.
Or the secrets. We don't talk about it, right?
Right.
So for me, here's the other part. And I believe that you both might be able to relate to this. I think a generational trauma, curse, whatever word you want to use, that has been passed down to me, that I feel not only do I fight to resolve, but I fight with it every single day, is being strong. Like, everything is about being strong. You do not understand how much it makes my blood boil when no one goes, I mean, not to say I never hear, but people don't say, you're pretty, you're smart, you're so strong. That is not a compliment.
Well, you
right?
know what? You know
How
what's
much you
funny
can
about
get
that?
beat down, how much you can take. But see, wait, it comes with more than just saying you're strong. It comes with not speaking up when you need help. It comes with taking on more than you can chew, suffering in silence, not letting people see you sweat, type of thing. And in my pass down, here's how it goes. You have to be strong. You can't let people see you weak. You can't whatever, right? That has been passed down. You got to have this, and that. All these things that make you strong. But then we go, well, no one's helping me. No one wants to do this for me. Well, if you know someone's strong and you're putting on this act or this facade of being strong, who's going to ask you if you need help? You're strong. You don't go to the muscle man and say, hey, do you need me to help you pick it up? You go, there's a strong person, let him pick it up, right?
But you know what's so funny about that? I think that also has a lot to do with being a woman of color.
I agree.
I'm gonna be straight up with you, because you know what I've noticed, especially where I work. I work in a place where there are a lot of people of not us, others, right? Yeah. And they have this tendency to fall apart with stuff that is the simplest.
Oh,
ma'am,
yes.
Ma'am, it's gonna be okay. Relax. Take a deep breath. So, but that's a thing. Woo, child, my computer done fell down and everything.
You good?
You too strong.
I'm strong. Hold on one second. I'll be right back.
Well, I also work in a community where I'm like the only Black female manager. And there are times where I am being ostracized or disrespected and I'm taking a stand. And then here comes a white manager and start crying. And I'm annoyed because I'm like, I want to cry too, but I can't. That's not even in my setup to start crying. Hey, girl. So I think that is also passed down, because I feel that women, not all, but women who are not of color, they've been passed down that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be the victim. Okay. It's okay, right? Not, bruh, no.
Someone's gonna save you. Okay.
I've had a mother who goes, "What are you crying? Show me which bill these tears are gonna pay." You know what I mean? So being strong is not. It's an obligation, right? It's an obligation. But then so is being the victim, because we've often heard brown, Black women of color, whatever, say, well, no one helps us. Again, who asks the strong person if they need help?
But so here's the thing about weakness, though. See, thing about it is that there are things that, because it's just when Molly is over there falling apart over something as simple as a flat tire. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, I'm over here figuring out how to get
How to
myself
change
together
it, right?
and
Yep.
going about my business and going about my day, right? It's like, it's almost like you're supposed to do that, Black girl.
Yeah, because that's been passed down to us.
That you're supposed to do that, because my mother and father came from another country, built their lives, and this, that, and third, and you know what I'm saying. So it's like, it's almost like this is how I was raised. I was raised to be that person, right? Because they came from another country, didn't really speak the language too great or whatever like that, and couldn't this, that, and third, and all these other stories and everything like that. So I had to be better than, right? They say we got to be twice as good to get half of whatever, right?
Yep,
that is
absolutely.
a generation. That statement, generational curse.
Yes.
That a lot of people, but it's not just, but that's the thing. It's like when you walk around and you have to, one, be strong, but also be soft enough to placate other people's feelings so that they don't fall apart and have a stroke because something simple has happened. It's like, that's a lot to carry. And at some point, it's almost like, I always have to put myself in another thing and go, okay, what we're not going to do right now is we're not going to react, because if we react, it's going to be such a bad reaction. And Molly's literally going to, if she's crying now, Molly going to implode in a minute if I really go in and let her know that, sister, stop it. It's going to be a problem, right? So it's like that whole thing about being strong. It's not really a strength, actually.
It's a curse. You're stressed out.
Yeah, all the time, 24/7.
Because here's the other thing. We hear about all the people who came before us who did it. They wasn't happy. They weren't happy.
But that's the thing. They put happy strength over happiness. That's not a thing.
Yes.
You feel me? Like, happiness is not important in life. And that's the other thing. It's like, that's the other part that's very much a curse when it comes to these type of situations, because some of our predecessors, they weren't happy, but they were in survival mode all the time. So they survived, but they weren't happy. So they were alive, but they weren't living, right? Mm-hmm. That's definitely a generational curse.
Well, I wanna step outside of our female selves, and I feel a generational curse that's larger than, or also large, I'm not saying larger because that's minimizing, is that men are doers. And that's all they do. They have a checklist of what they're supposed to do. Pay the bill, make sure she's good, make sure the kid's good, make sure the house is good. Boom, done, right? That's a curse, because they never learn to be themselves. They just learn to be the checklist, the honey-do list of society. Mm-hmm. That's it, right? So here's like, well, as long as I make sure this person's good and I make sure that person's good and I pay this bill and I pay that bill, how I feel, what I'm experiencing, and the trials and tribulations I go to don't matter. As long as I make sure all of that is a curse too. Because then in 2024, we're like, hey man, I have feelings. What are your feelings? And they're like, the bills are paid. That's my feeling. You got your hair done. That's my feeling. But they're killing themselves because there are feelings that they never address. Mm-hmm. I feel that is too. And I've literally heard my 22-year-old go, I mean, I work, I make sure she's good till I die. No, that is not your only it's an important thing, but it's not your only thing. So I think, because we were talking about just the female.
That's deep. Because not for nothing for not. That right there is some deep shit. Because let me tell you something right now. Now, I mean, let's keep it 100. Because you know what? There's a thing going on. So that part, what you just said, that's true. There are men out there who that's all it is. But there's also men out there who are the opposite of that and don't do none of them things that you just said, and still can't be, and still are not emotionally I'm losing all my words today. Sorry. Like, no emotional intelligence, no emotional presence,
no emotional availability,
no emotions. Like, what's happening?
But where do they get that? That's passed down. We just read a whole letter from a dude who said he couldn't do it because he saw his grandpa never showing those. Do y'all remember that?
Yes. Where's 90s R&B guy? Because they was feeling stuff, and I don't understand what's happening now. Now these mofos ain't feeling shit, and it's like, it's whack.
But where are they learning to feel it? I'm asking.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're learning to feel
Dr.
it.
Royal, what you think? Because
So,
there's
you know,
got to be
you see her
something going on
processing,
here.
right? You see her brain gonna be.
No.
I can see it.
I'm listening, and the only thing I was just gonna say, when I was, once things kind of settled for a minute, was just that, for men, it kind of does go back to, again, being a provider was what was necessary during the period of slavery. Those men, their focus was to protect their family and provide, period, and protect them to to the best of their ability, because we know that there were limitations to their ability to protect as well. Um, but in listening to that conversation, I also have to say that when we talk about generational trauma or generational curses, we're talking about where we are putting emphasis on a particular area,
Mm-hmm.
which supersedes and trumps anything else, right? So, like the example that you just gave, Pearl, about the man who's all provider and very little to any emotional accountability, right, to their partner or whatever. Um, but even in that thought led me to the concept of financial generational curse,
Yes.
in which either we hyper focus on go get the bag, go get the bag, go get the bag. That's the new term for the day. I mean, because that's not what we used to say back in the day.
Yeah.
But or a situation where we're crabs in a barrel, and sometimes in families there
Mm.
are individuals who maybe somebody made it out, right?
Yeah.
Because my husband and I, we talk about the whole concept of um our lovely children today. Everybody wants to be from the hood, everybody wants to be a thug. But in reality, those of us, not myself, because I'm from northeastern North Carolina, I don't know nothing.
She
I
said, I
mean,
don't know nothing about the
I
hood.
mean, I do. I know what I know, but not like that. I wasn't
Yeah.
raised in that. And there's a difference between being raised in it and being introduced in a different way.
Yeah.
But having been raised in the hood and know about the hood, those individuals and even various rap artists have said nobody that came from the hood wants to go back to the hood.
Yeah.
Nobody,
Mhm.
wants to maintain that lifestyle. And what you find oftentimes is that when that one person is able to break that
Yep.
and they get out,
Yep.
then what happens oftentimes is that person is either ostracized because they did get out, so now you think you're all that,
Yep.
or a situation where happen where everybody will rely that
On that
codependency
person.
that you spoke to,
Yeah.
Pearl. Okay, I need you, I need you, I need you, I need you. Or sometimes I've seen everybody be broken a family,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody is living off of a very tight fixed budget or
Yeah.
whatever the scenario is. And in that, you see Peter robbing Paul, while grandma is also robbing that same Peter that robbed you. It's a
Yes.
whole bunch of
Yes.
woo-wee. It's yeah, it's a woo-wee. It's a
I was
lot that
saying.
goes on. Like, and I don't know if you guys, if you ladies have ever seen or known of family dynamics such as that, where everybody tries to maintain everybody in this same boat. But
Yes.
but then they'll turn around and say, "Well, I'm gonna go buy me a house." Baby, how you gonna buy you a house when you're only making $20 an hour and you living off Section 8? Baby, how you gonna buy a house, boo?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not being and see, and here
No,
I go
it's not being
again.
ugly.
It
It's
is being
true.
ugly because we got diverse viewers, and I don't want anybody to be like,
No,
Well,
but it's like, but
you
listen,
are. But
for the audience, Section 8 could be for whatever color you are. So
yeah,
there's no
and right,
color
because I ain't even
requirement.
getting into I'm this when I start talking, I'm equal opportunity. I don't care what my race
Okay.
is, look, or gender or gender preference either, for that matter. But But for real, like I see that and I'm like, well, Sugar Buck, like, how does that work?
See, and the
How
thing
does
about it
that
is that
work?
even that idea of like what is happening, what's going on. I mean, like I feel as though everybody, especially you'd be very, 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 very fortunate if you got to your big age and you did not feel some sort of family, because it's basically what it comes down to. It's a family thing, right? No matter
Everything.
what we're talking about is family stuff.
Right, we are.
What your family has done, what your family has not done, how your family dynamic is. That's what this is all about, right? So if you've gotten to a stage in your life where gotten to a stage in your life where your family has not influenced you, or you're still good, even though in spite of all of those things, damn it, good job. Because a lot of us are still dealing with stuff, even like I said, at big age, at your big age. Like one of the things that I'm learning about my family, like in terms of my family, is I have a lot of the kids of the people that were before me. So my uncles and aunts and all of them, their kids are excelling in ways that are like absolutely wonderful. Shout out to my cousins. Y'all ain't playing. But then here's the thing, it's also this thing where the thing that fuels them and makes them happy is not good enough. So if you're not a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, right? If you're not an engineer or whatever those things are, then you're not doing
those
life
big
right.
label,
Right? So if you're artistic, you're not doing life right. The question is, what like when we talk about our families and stuff, it's like what is that person doing? Right?
Yeah.
What do they do?
What do they do? What are they doing? Or I have one even better. I have in my family, I have a set of my, one of my uncles. Him and his wife have 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. The two, and this is, I guess, again, this is something I've looked at and I've said it, and it was like, the daughters are taught to be good wives in the way where they cook and they clean and they do all them things, and it's very important. And this is very, very important, right?
You can't. You're not a real woman if you don't have that,
right? And also, so much so that they are taught to marry men from our home country.
Okay,
this is literally a thing, right? Whereas they have 2 sons. The 2 sons, they got the snow bunnies up in the Midwest. Just yes, marry them, get married to them. There's no like this, almost like it's weird. And I've said this to the youngest cousin, because as far as I was concerned, the youngest cousin, she was born here. So in my head, she's gonna cut this whole thing is gonna get cut right quick off with her, because she born here. You know what I'm saying? She's a youngster. She gonna say, nah, son, no, sister. The way they got this poor child, and I say poor child because she's the same age as my son. So I know what I know what I'm looking at. And they have her, and she has a complex. Like, she has to marry an African man. She has to know how to make, fufu. She has to know how to make jollof rice. It's very important. If her jollof rice don't come out right, then there's a problem. And I'm looking at her like, sis. Whereas the boys don't even have that problem. So it's like, for me, when I say the cultural thing is deep.
Yes, ma'am.
Well,
it's deep for me. Like, my cousin, she's a wonderful makeup artist. And I know for a fact that that's the thing, like now, like, she's a wonderful makeup artist. But sometimes people look at her and go, makeup artist?
What's that, right?
What's that? That's not doctor. That's not a doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of thing that comes out.
Same here.
And it's so messed up, because it's like, that's the thing. It's like just trying to change the idea of what success is. Just trying to change the idea of, that part. It's like, that's another part. That's another tradition. That's another.
Well, there's another trauma that continues on too, and it's a lot deeper than that. The trauma of unforgiveness. We have unforgiveness that go from generation to generation. We have, and I'm not talking about intolerance. I mean unforgiveness,
right?
Lack of humility, inflated ego that goes from generation to generation. So we're going to the next, and we haven't forgiven someone those things travel. Those things are deeper. Those things poison you from the inside out. It affects how you interact with people, non-family. It affects how you can keep a job, how you can keep a relationship, how you could keep a family. That unforgiveness, if I see it, I'm gonna mimic it. Meaning, as a child, and then I'm gonna move on. Right? It's always someone else's fault. They did that. I can't believe they didn't give me back that $10. I feel that is deeper. Like, you don't see that, right? You don't go. No one's walking around talking about I'm unforgiving, right? You can see I'm not a doctor. I'm a makeup artist. You can see those things, but the unforgiveness, we pass that on. We teach our children how to be unforgiving, we teach that, right? We're taught that. If someone do you dirty, bump them, cut them off. We're done. We're finished. That is something that makes it hard to survive with peace, whether we realize it or not. Lack of peace is something we pass on too. That inner noise that keeps us up at night, the inner noise that makes us, recluse. Those are things we pass on as well. So, I mean, we could keep going and going.
Listen.
I'm just saying, it's a lot deeper than we realize. Yeah.
No, you're right, and we've kind of touched on how do we begin to break these generational traumas and curses. We've touched on it.
Mm-hmm.
Not to exclude or seclude yourself, because stuff begins to fester because you're not open to talking to anyone. And we talked about the importance of having a sense of identification of when,
yes,
and what is causing this trauma, right? We got to identify it and then begin to work on it. But in order to work on it, we got to have whole conversations.
Real
conversations beyond this platform.
Hard conversations.
Yeah.
Which the hard one.
I agree, because even in my own family, what always scares me and I could say, it always scares me is, hey, I really love this person, but if I bring this up, that's it. They're not going to talk to me anymore. They're going to back up. We might go back and forth. And you're like, I don't want to ruffle feathers, but maybe that's what we need to do, is ruffle feathers, right?
No, feathers need to be ruffled. Feathers.
But the thing is, you don't want to break those relationships, because sometimes the person on the receiving end doesn't want to hear it, and they kind of.
Why you don't want to break it? Why you don't want to break it? See, I'm a breaker. I don't care.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not a breaker. Just for clarity, probably like 95% of my family is not talking to me right now. But I'm okay. I sleep at night. You know what I mean? It's not that. But it did take me some time to get there. Right?
But see, that's the thing. I think that's also another thing. It's like the fact that, like, even you say you're a breaker, things like, listen.
Well, I don't know if I'm a breaker.
Family is one of those things. It's a family and relatives are two different things.
Yes. Come on.
Me being related to you and me being family is two different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, me and you having the same blood coursing through our veins should not allow you to come at me sideways, talk to me any old kind of way and crazy, treat me bad, poorly, and all them things there. Because guess what? People who are outside in the streets, they know better. So you better stop it. Cut it out.
Yeah, that's a relative.
Right, and that's why I said relatives and family.
Yeah, you don't have a choice in your relatives.
I have relatives who are also my family, and I have family who are not related to me in one way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Because my family is people I choose to be in my circle. Absolutely. I choose to be my village. I choose to have my back. You feel me? So that's one of the generational curses I broke a long time ago.
Yes,
I ain't gonna front, because my family was good for like, oh, but that's your uncle and that's your aunt and that's your
that's how people get molested. That's how
that was one of the things. That was the biggest thing if I say anything, if I change anything when it comes to my family, that's the one I changed. You could be, I don't care. Like, I have cousins who are the same type of cousin. In other words, they all can't, like, they on the same family. They the older brother or the younger sister, whoever whoever it was, but they in the same family. And guess what? Your sister and your brother, they my family. You relative. Hi. I see you on, see you on those moments, and I'll address you as such. Cause I choose that. Now in my family, my big family or whatever you want to call it, they don't believe in that. We are family through and through. We got the same blood. We got the same grandma, same grandpa. So we supposed to be, son, if you mistreat me, or I feel as though you disrespected me, that's where you lose me. That is definitely something, right? Cut it off. That is definitely something. Snatch it. That is definitely something that I have.
I agree. It's just when Royal started moving her hand, I looked up. I
Oh,
was
God. Cut that Scotos. Cut them off. No, but it's true though. But that's the one. That one. If I have broken any of the generational issues in my family's had, that's the one right there. You're not gonna talk to me crazy because you're my aunt. That ain't got nothing to do with life. Because in real life, like I said, people who talk to me like that normally don't fare well. I'm sorry. One thing about me, if you don't know, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail.
But
jail
you will if you got to.
No, jail. I only go to jail.
I'll
only go to jail for one person and one person alone. And if you ain't messing with him, you good. But I'm not going to jail. So what I'll do is instead of going to jail, what I will do is I will slow burn and leave you right where you standing. I'm not going. We're not doing this. And I've told them straight up, like, listen, you're not talking to me crazy because Rose and Daniel don't talk to me crazy. So there's no way in the world Auntie whoever's gonna talk to me crazy. That's not a thing.
So how do we? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Royal. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna pick it back off her. I'm with you. I have a very small group that I will go to jail over.
Right.
And they are truly immediate family.
Correct. They probably came out of you.
Correct. My mom and dad are included in it, because they came out of them.
Right. That one.
Well, it's all the same.
But what I want to say is I feel you 100% miscommunication, because when we don't address these generational curses, or these generational traumas, many of us use various substances and other coping mechanisms, or have emotional disruption in the form of depression, or PTSD, and just these other mental health crises that are taking place because of the fact that we were not brave enough.
That's very good.
The brave
to address what is truly happening. But anyway, go ahead, sis. Go ahead.
No, that was good. Is that your whole thought? You was going somewhere.
Bravery is that's a big word. And I didn't see it that way, but yes, the bravery.
Yes, that statement is like.
I mean, and reason why I use the term brave, because you have to. It's like going into battle, right? And so if you've chosen to go into battle, those of us that have done that and broken some things, you get that medal of honor at the end of the battle.
Yeah, because when you say brave, you know what brave is? Willing to go through the discomfort.
Absolutely. And so when we was talking about ruffling feathers, I'm ruffle up then. I don't care.
Do it.
Yeah. Right. Hit that peacock.
Right, exactly.
Like, because at the end of the day, the doctor's gonna have peace.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. People are not used to people actually requiring peace in their life, regardless of what. That's the thing. It's almost like you have the audacity to choose peace over what's going on in this family. Yes, I do.
Oh, Skippy.
Yes, I do. Because guess what? This life is mine. Your lives are yours.
Only got one.
Listen, if you decide that you want to deal with the fooshnickery and the craziness, that's on you. But guess what? Guess who's not doing that? This one here. I'm not doing that. And you know what? It's that part. It's that truest form of understanding what people don't understand, that you have the right,
Absolutely.
not just to be brave, because the brave part, that's deep, but let me tell you something, you have the right to be happy.
Yeah.
And nobody has the right to tell you that you're wrong for doing so at any cost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Shut it all down. Ruffle them feathers. You said ruffle them feathers.
Yeah.
Cut them
Peacock.
off.
You said all that.
Figure it out.
I
Figure it
love
out.
it.
Yeah.
I love
Facts.
it. I love
Facts.
it. Look,
Yes.
Facebook user said facts at the
Yeah,
same.
throw all them things out the window, because you know what? The generational thing is always going to be the thing. We are the generation who's actually seeing it and identifying that there is something wrong.
Well, I think also some people go, well, I was miserable, so why shouldn't you? Or this was normal for me, it should be for you. No.
It's abnormal for you to sleep with your finger in your thumb. You know, your thumb in your ear. That's abnormal.
I'm gonna say your finger in your thumb.
Just because you walked around with your thumb in your ear all your life does not mean that's normal. It just means that you got used to it.
Some people are so broken that they learn to survive in the brokenness. That
in
doesn't
discomfort.
Mean it's good.
Yeah, in discomfort.
Right? It doesn't mean it's good. I think so. For me, which is what I was gonna say, is what do we do to stop that?
Yeah, we're gonna have another show.
And that's what we were just talking about.
That's another show.
For me,
go ahead, baby. Go ahead.
The reason why I do what y'all said, the talking and being, is like that is not the legacy I want to leave for the next.
Good.
I don't want to be sitting there like this person is being too strong. They're suffering in silence. They're unforgiving. You know, I mean, I probably forgive too much, but unforgiving. And I don't want to leave that, right? How can we be mad at the last person who handed down their trauma if we're just taking it and handing it to the next? We are no better. We are no better. Speak up. And I tell my kids all the time, down to the root, the toot, the booty pooty, whatever we talking about, I'm talking about it. If it's about a cavity, I'll talk about a cavity. If it's about don't be out here flinging the cootie, then don't be out here flinging. It has to be. I have to take the lessons that I learned and give it to the next. A lot of us are getting all this information, all this education, all this knowledge, and we don't share it. What's the point? What seeds are you sowing?
You always have to have a conscious effort, right, to not use the same exact tactics or whatever was happening before in your life now, and then taking that and definitely curtailing it to the child or curtailing it to whatever else comes after, because that's the problem. Problem is, it's not that they did. It's almost as if I'm gonna, just to let them off the hook. They didn't know any better. We do.
But we do, so
that's what I'm saying. They didn't know any
better,
right? So I'm saying they didn't know any better. We do, so we have a responsibility at this point to move forward in a way where we do not repeat the same patterns. See, that's the thing. It's all about a pattern. So the pattern is we don't talk about things.
Well, we can't be complacent in the dysfunction.
No, we cannot. Absolutely not. That's what I'm saying.
But we do become complacent because we're not. And Roy, I'm telling you, that's the word of the day. Brave enough to step out of the pattern.
Oh no, I'm brave. Listen. I'm brave as all hell. Okay, bravery is my middle name because you know what? Bravery also means survival for me. You understand?
Yeah, and that's fine, right? That's fine. Just like people go, well, we're not getting divorced. We don't get divorced in this family. Then what do we do to make sure we don't get divorced? Or do we stay and get beat up in a marriage? No.
That part.
That's the thing. Okay, we don't get divorced. But what are we doing to ensure that doesn't happen? Do we just stay? Oh, we don't, smoke crack. I'm not trying to be funny.
Wow.
We don't smoke crack. Wow. How many things?
No, not wow, like wow, but wow, but yes.
Drug addiction down. We passed alcoholism down. But it's like, yo, daughter, son, I was drinking like this because I couldn't deal with the fact that your grandpa was always on my back. Whatever. We need to have those conversations.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think that's what we're scared to do.
And so my final thought, and I'm gonna close my point out with a quote in just a second.
Ooh, you gonna give a quote?
Because it's all about choice. So my closing point for tonight is I'm gonna read you all a well-known quote from the great Marianne Williamson, who said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond, and it is our light, not our darkness, that must that most often frightens us. We use ourselves. We need to, excuse me, we need to ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, to be courageous, to be talented, to be fabulous? The better question is actually, who are you not to be?
Woo.
Go out here and bust some doors open.
Bust some
Ruffle the feathers.
Bust them.
Cut them off.
Cut them off.
Fix it.
Slowly. Look, and do it slow.
That.
Do it slow.
Slow, so they can
Oh
feel
my
it.
gosh,
Well, let's
there's
not
nothing to say after that. So
Right.
that was fantastic. So thank you for joining us tonight. If you haven't subscribed or liked, please go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe. You get notifications when we get on, so you don't have to wonder when. You'll just get your little ping ping and know we're on. I want to thank you ladies for this conversation. We get deeper and deeper every time we meet. Coach Tay, feel better.
Feel better, baby.
We miss you. And to my experienced family, just in case no one has told you today, you are enough. And we love you. Have a good one, guys. Peace out.
Deuces.